The lights of Los Angeles still glowed brightly when Anna Reynolds vanished from the Greek Theater on the night of the 12th of August 1979. As the city immersed itself in summer music, just hours later, the festive atmosphere was replaced by the chilling silence of Griffith Park. At 10:45 p.m., the two-year-old photography student told a friend she was heading to the park to take a few photos before going home. That was the last time anyone saw her step out of the stage lights, carrying her Nikon camera and an undeveloped roll of film. By sunrise the next morning, all that remained was her Volkswagen parked on the roadside, headlights still on, and a question that would haunt Los Angeles for 4 decades: where did Anna truly disappear to that night? Before diving into the story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay updated on the latest cases. On the night of the 12th of August 1979, Los Angeles was alive with music from a weekend concert at the Greek Theater. As the crowd dispersed and the stage lights faded against the smoggy sky, Anna Reynolds, a two-year-old UCLA photography student, walked out of the parking lot with her Nikon F2 slung over her shoulder. She told a friend she wanted to stop by Griffith Park to try some night exposure shots for a final class project. That was Anna's last known statement before she vanished. Around 10:45 p.m., her pale yellow Volkswagen Beetle turned onto Mount Hollywood Drive. According to a security guard, she parked near a side gate and briefly spoke with a tall, lanky man with dark hair carrying a large camera bag. They walked together toward a hillside where an old, abandoned picnic area lay. Then, both disappeared into the park's thick fog. That was the last time Anna was seen alive. At dawn, her roommate called the dorm but got no answer. Assuming Anna was in the darkroom, she didn't think much of it. By morning, Anna still hadn't returned, missed her morning class, and didn't show up for her shift at a photo shop in Glendale. Friends grew worried, calling around, but no one knew exactly who she left the concert with. One recalled Anna mentioning she'd meet a professional photographer to learn night photography techniques, but no one knew his name. By noon on August 13, her family in Glendale got word and immediately drove to the Greek Theater. They scoured the parking lot, questioning ticket staff, witnesses, vendors. No one had seen her. One person vaguely recalled a blonde girl in a denim jacket with a man carrying a black camera bag. That afternoon, the family reported her missing at the Hollywood police station, with a case filed at 3:45 p.m. In the report, Anna's last confirmed sighting was at 10:45 p.m. on August 12, right after leaving the concert. From that moment, she seemed to vanish between the lights of Los Angeles and the dark woods of Griffith Park. No trace, no message. A talented student, an artistic dream, gone in the night, leaving a chilling question that the city would grapple with for decades. Shortly after the family reported her missing, the missing person, Anna Reynolds' case, was handed to the night shift of the LAPD Hollywood Division. At 11 p.m. on August 13, 2 officers were dispatched to the area around the Greek Theater, where Anna was last seen. They cordoned off the north parking lot, noting time, temperature, lighting conditions, and coordinates of trails leading into Griffith Park. The first search team set out at midnight, consisting of 12 rescuers, 4 officers, and 2 trained search dogs. Flashlight beams swept through the dry forest, illuminating oak trees and chest-high cactus patches. Thick fog blanketed the slopes, reducing visibility to just over 50 meters. Loudspeakers echoed her name, mingling with insect chirps and the distant hum of a helicopter. Teams fanned out in 3 directions: Mount Hollywood Drive, Ferndale Trail, and a path toward the Los Feliz edge. At each point, they planted reflective flags to mark searched areas. By dawn, the dogs picked up a faint scent near a dry creek bed in the park's west, where the soil was slightly disturbed. A single white women's canvas shoe lay alone by a low shrub. A few meters away, shallow tire tracks stretched about 2 meters before vanishing at a bend. The soil and shoe were collected, labeled, and sent to a temporary command post at the Greek Theater parking lot. The initial scene report noted, "No subject located, scent lost beyond dry creek bed." By morning, the search expanded nearly 2 miles. Air Support 6, a helicopter, was deployed. Circling the hills in a spiral pattern, its spotlight sweeping narrow trails and rocky crevices. Rescuers continued in rising daytime heat, with sunlight reflecting off rocky slopes, making observation harder. That afternoon, searchers found a crumpled, illegible piece of paper and some scratches on a dirt wall, but no evidence tied them to the victim. On the second night, teams from Glendale and Pasadena joined, splitting into 6 groups, taking turns, sweeping the park's edges and eastern hills with old drainage tunnels. Generators and mobile lights cast a wide glow through the forest, but no sign of Anna emerged. Some Los Feliz residents reported hearing a car engine around midnight but couldn't pinpoint the direction. Police checked exits at Griffith Observatory and Glendale Canyon. No abandoned vehicles were found. By dawn on August 16, after 3 days of continuous searching, the operation commander reported, "No trace of victim within 5-mile radius of disappearance area. Direct search suspended, awaiting further investigation orders." Anna's family stayed at the field command post until afternoon, hoping for news. But the evidence log remained empty. The last rescuers packed up, rolling up caution tape, leaving behind tire tracks in the dust and a few reflective flags still staked on the hillside. As dusk fell over Griffith Park, the search officially ended after 72 hours. No trace, no explanation, just a brief police file note, subject not located, presumed missing. 3 days after the search was halted, Griffith Park returned to its usual rhythm. On the morning of the 18th of August 1979, a hiker named Harold Jennings, a Los Feliz resident, was jogging up Mount Hollywood Drive when he noticed a pale yellow Volkswagen Beetle parked close to the road's edge, its right front wheel half slid into a ditch. The car was lightly dusted, with a few dry leaves on the hood. But what caught his eye was the left headlight flickering faintly, as if the battery was nearly drained. He approached, peered through the window, and saw no one inside. The doors were locked, the driver's seat tilted forward, and the gearshift was in neutral. A canvas backpack and a rolled-up newspaper sat on the passenger seat. He almost walked away but recognized the license plate, 3CJE 728, from a Los Angeles Herald-Examiner article about the missing UCLA student, Anna Reynolds, and her similar car. Jennings hiked to a payphone near the park gate and called police. At 9:27 a.m., LAPD patrol unit 7 Adam 12 arrived, secured the area, and reported to command. Possible vehicle, belonging to missing person. By 10:05 a.m., Detective Robert Hale, the case lead, reached the scene. He confirmed it was Anna's car, matching the plate from the August 13 report. Police set a 50-foot perimeter, sealed the area, and logged it as vehicle evidence scene 18 divided by 8 divided by 79. The forensics team photographed the scene in wide and close-up shots, noting the car's condition. All doors locked, driver's window up, passenger window down 3 inches. The battery was weak, but still powered a faint light. The radio was off, but the headlight switch was on. No skid marks or oil leaks were under the car. 2 layers of tire tracks were on the ground, one old and dusty, one newer, indicating the car moved at least twice before stopping here. The surrounding area had no clear footprints due to strong winds and thick dust, only some crushed leaves behind the car, suggesting someone may have stood there. Forensics used UV light on the car's body, finding a faint upside-down handprint on the windshield, 20 centimeters from the dashboard edge. The print was photographed and dusted, but dirt obscured identification. In the trunk, they found an unprocessed Kodak Ektachrome 35mm film roll in its original box, a faded receipt from Silverline Darkroom with a handwritten D cross signature, and a Greek theater entry pass stamped 11:15 p.m., August 12. All items were bagged and sealed. Under the driver's seat was a torn parking ticket from August 12, marked Lot C, matching Anna's parking area from the concert night. The left headlight was still faintly on, indicating the switch wasn't turned off since the car stopped, suggesting the engine may have shut off the night she vanished, with the battery draining slowly after. The technical report noted the car's discovery at 9:27 a.m., estimating it had been stationary for 60 to 72 hours. No moss or water marks under the tires confirmed no rain in that time. Hale's log noted, vehicle located within search grid, previously overlooked. Finding the car on a road search 3 nights earlier sparked internal debate. Either it was moved there after the search ended, or the team missed it due to thick fog. No evidence supported either theory, but the last confirmed time the Beetle was active 10:45 p.m. on August 12, when Anna left the concert, became the first anchor for reconstructing her disappearance. Police towed the car to the Hollywood Division Evidence Yard, keeping it sealed for further technical analysis. The day's final report stated, "Vehicle of missing subject recovered intact. Investigation continues." The morning of the 19th of August 1979, just a day after Anna's Volkswagen Beetle was taken for examination, Griffith Park Rangers reported a strange smell from a dry creek area east of Mount Hollywood Drive, about 800 meters from the car's location. The first to notice was park maintenance worker Manuel Ortiz, clearing trash along a trail. He described a sweet, acrid smell, like a decomposing animal, coming from a cluster of bushes near a shallow rock gully. A patrol team arrived at 10:18 a.m., probed the area, and spotted a piece of blue denim fabric poking from under decayed leaves. When rescuers arrived, they cleared dry soil and uncovered a female body lying on its side, head resting on a rock, right arm extended, left leg bent. The body showed light decomposition due to hot, dry weather but was still recognizable. About a meter away was a Nikon F2 camera without a lens, its body cap off, empty inside. A small canvas bag lay a few steps away, containing an empty film canister. Police sealed off a 30-meter radius, marked it with reflective stakes, logged coordinates, and called the coroner's office. At 12:05 p.m., Detective Robert Hale arrived, making a preliminary identification. Female, Caucasian, early 20s. Based on descriptions, clothing, and a silver necklace Anna often wore, he suspected it was the missing person. All items around the body were numbered, photographed in close-up and wide shots, from east to west. The scene report noted, body partially concealed, no sign of struggle, possible chemical involvement. By 2 p.m., Los Angeles County Coroner's Office forensic specialist Dr. Thomas Laird conducted an on-site examination. He noted a clear needle mark on the left arm, 1.2 millimeters in diameter, with no widespread bruising indicating the injection occurred while the victim was alive and her heart was still pumping. No major bruises, broken bones, or scratches around wrists or ankles suggested she wasn't bound or in a struggle. A faint circular mark on the neck, not deep, was likely from the camera strap. Her hair was matted with sand containing tiny sea salt grains, similar to Santa Monica beach sand, not found in Griffith Park. A 5-cent coin and a torn receipt from Glendale Camera Supply, dated August 11, were found in her back pocket. All items were collected, labeled E1 to E15, and sent to the Central Evidence Room. The body was moved to the Los Angeles County morgue by 4:20 p.m. That evening, Dr. Laird and assistants conducted a full autopsy. The preliminary report, issued August 20, confirmed under identification, match with missing person, Anna Reynolds confirmed by dental record provided by family dentist. No external injuries were found except the single needle mark on the left arm. Blood samples from the heart and liver showed abnormally high morphine levels, exceeding lethal thresholds. No signs of sexual assault, semen, or scratch marks were present. The throat and trachea were clear, ruling out strangulation or suffocation. Slight abdominal bloating was due to natural decomposition. Preliminary conclusion. Cause of death: acute morphine intoxication. Manner: undetermined. At the August 21 morning briefing, Hale presented findings to superiors. Initial theories split into 2 possibilities: self-administered overdose or injection by another. He requested analysis of the needle type and injection angle, sending samples to UCLA's toxicology lab to trace the morphine source. Results later showed it wasn't medical grade but a solvent mixed with benzotriazole, a chemical common in photo processing. This shifted the investigation. The missing person case was renamed Case 79-3824, Suspicious Death. Police returned to the scene to measure the distance between the body and the car's location. It was exactly 0.52 miles, a steep path accessible only by foot or small vehicle. From there, the city lights blurred in the distance, invisible from the main road. Experts concluded the body was deliberately placed, not buried or deeply hidden, but obscure enough to avoid initial search detection. This aligned with the car's appearance 3 days after the search ended, suggesting someone returned and moved it. On August 22, newspapers ran a brief story. UCLA student's body found in Griffith Park. Investigation ongoing. The family was called for identification that afternoon, confirming it was Anna. Laird finalized the coroner's report, stating the cause of death as acute morphine poisoning, with no evidence of a struggle, and estimated time of death around midnight August 12-13. Anna's left wrist still bore a silver bracelet engraved AR, the only item unmoved. The case was handed to LAPD's Criminal Division with a recommendation: investigate possible external administration of chemical substance. As Hale left the morgue that night, he knew the simple missing person case was now a criminal investigation. In his case log, he wrote, "Victim located. Toxic evidence suggests foul play. Next, trace chemical origin." From that moment, Anna Reynolds' name moved from the missing persons list to a list of deaths demanding answers. After the suspicious death, Case 79-3824 file was established. The LAPD investigation team began reviewing everyone who might have encountered Anna in her final 48 hours. Detectives split into 3 groups. One focused on the Greek theater area, another reviewed Anna's life and studies at UCLA, and the third checked her part-time job at the Glendale photo shop. Their first goal was to reconstruct her movements on August 12, the day she vanished. The shop's work log showed Anna left her shift at 6 p.m., taking 3 unprocessed film rolls, saying she was heading to the Greek theater concert with class friends. 4 witnesses were confirmed to have been with her at the event, 3 students and a photography teaching assistant. All 4 stated that after the show ended around 10:30 p.m., they said goodbye in Lot C. Anna mentioned stopping by Griffith Park to test some lighting shots before heading to her dorm. No one saw her after that. The investigation team interviewed all Greek theater staff working that night. A security guard, John McCarthy, clearly recalled seeing a young woman with a camera leaving via a side exit, accompanied by a man in his 30 seconds or 40 seconds with brown hair, wearing a light-colored shirt and carrying a large camera bag. They spoke briefly before walking toward the hill. When pressed for details, he only said, "They seem to know each other." Police reviewed ticket lists and parking passes, cross-referencing entry and exit times. The pass found in Anna's car had a stamp for 11:15 p.m., half an hour after the concert ended, indicating she lingered in the area after the crowd left. While the Greek theater team gathered data, the group at Glendale Camera Supply uncovered a key detail. On August 11, Anna received a receipt from Silverline Darkroom on Riverside Drive in Burbank, a shop specializing in film processing rentals and chemicals. Detective Robert Hale and a colleague visited the address. The faded silver sign marked a narrow ground floor space with rows of developing tables, water tanks, and a sharp chemical smell. The owner, David Cross, 36, a former advertising photographer now running a freelance processing service, admitted meeting Anna a few times. She rented darkroom space or asked about lighting techniques. In the transaction log, Hale found an entry for August 12. Customer A. Reynolds, 3 rolls, 8 p.m., signed D. Cross. Cross explained he signed to confirm receiving her films for processing, telling her to pick them up after the concert since the shop would close early. When asked if she returned that night, Cross said he didn't recall anyone coming. As he left around 9:30 p.m., police canvassed the area around Silverline, questioning nearby residents. A woman living above the shop reported hearing a car engine start around 10 p.m., but didn't see who was in it. No security cameras existed in the neighborhood then. Hale ordered a check of the darkroom's chemicals and tools, collecting solution samples from the developing tanks for analysis since the prior coroner's report noted morphine in Anna's body contained benzotriazole, a common photo processing additive. When asked about chemical sources, Cross provided invoices from Hollywood Camera Supply, all legitimate and standard for commercial use. All collected data fell within legal bounds, with no clear criminal evidence. Fingerprints from the camera at the scene didn't match Cross. The Nikon in his shop had a different serial number. Police checked Silverline's rental records for August 12. No customers were logged except Anna. All evidence remained coincidental. The investigation report concluded, no probable cause for arrest. Subject cooperative. Hale added. Cross remains person of interest pending further forensic results. In the following days, LAPD questioned Anna's classmates, professors, and co-workers. No new information emerged beyond her mentioning a night photo series for class, possibly tied to her final project. Her photography department file contained no sketches mentioning Griffith Park or the Greek Theater. Every lead circled back to the starting point. Media interest waned after the initial article, calling it the mysterious death of a photography-loving student. The family requested further investigation, but no direct evidence supported continuing. By late September, chemical analysis from Silverline returned. The tank solutions contained benzotriazole but no morphine. The coroner couldn't trace the toxin's path in Anna's body or find DNA beyond the victims. With no new witnesses or linked evidence, the investigation stalled. On the 3rd of October 1979, the case was marked inactive, pending new evidence. Hale's final log entry read, no further leads. File retained for review. The Anna Reynolds case, once a high-profile disappearance, quietly faded into Los Angeles criminal records. In early October 1979, a detailed toxicology report from the Los Angeles Judicial Identification Office reached Detective Robert Hale's desk. The 14-page report, coded 79TX divided by 3,284, confirmed blood, liver tissue, and stomach fluid samples contained morphine levels far exceeding survivable thresholds. However, this morphine didn't match any legally circulated medical formulation. The sample was industrial grade, crudely extracted, mixed with additives like benzotriazole, hydroquinone, and a small amount of an antioxidant common in film processing solutions. The lab noted, toxin administered via direct intravenous injection, not ingested or inhaled. Chemical reaction matches darkroom photo solvents. Dr. Thomas Laird, who performed the autopsy, added, the single needle mark on the inner left arm had a downward angle, suggesting the injector faced the victim or stood to her right, using their left hand, a position more typical of another person injecting than self-administration. No tools supporting self-injection were found at the scene, no clean syringes, vials, or containers. The body's location was also unsuitable for self-administration. A steep, dusty, rocky slope with no lighting or flat surface for precise needle use. The report detailed the timeline. The morphine and solvent dose corresponded to death within 10 to 15 minutes post-injection. Before cardiac arrest, the victim remained conscious for 2-3 minutes, enough for muscle reflexes and tilting, explaining her sideways position when found. No resistance marks suggested the injection was sudden, or the victim was incapacitated beforehand. Muscle tissue around the injection site showed minimal damage, indicating the needle hit the vein accurately, a technique typical of someone with medical or lab chemical experience. Hale marked benzotriazole, hydroquinone, and darkroom in red pen. These matched chemicals he saw at Silverline darkroom. He called the toxicology lab to confirm the analysis method. They replied, we ran mass spectrometry. It's definitely photographic benzotriazole, not medical. Hale reported this to superiors, with copies of Cross's chemical invoices, requesting a recheck of Silverline's supply chain. On October 12, 2 health inspectors visited Hollywood Camera Supply, where Cross claimed to buy chemicals. They confirmed the store sold benzotriazole and hydroquinone, but not industrial morphine, which was only available through industrial lab channels. LAPD's internal review noted, morphine source unidentified. No legal purchase channel. This ruled out self-overdose. In the report's appendix, Laird listed other physiological details. No signs of drug addiction, no hardened veins, no prior injection scars. The victim had no history of drug use. The high morphine dose caused rapid paralysis, leading to respiratory failure within minutes. All evidence supported injection by another person. On October 15, Hale submitted the toxicological findings and interpretation to command. In the meeting, a district prosecutor asked, "Can we confirm this as intentional homicide?" Hale replied, "We don't have a suspect, but the chemical type, injection method, and scene location rule out suicide. She had no tools, no drug source, no motive." Post-meeting, the case was officially reclassified from suspicious death to homicide, open investigation. An internal memo on October 16 notified all LAPD units. Reactivation Case 79-3824, Anna Reynolds. The Violent Crimes Unit was assigned to assist Hale in reviewing all chemical sources, and August 1979 transactions at Los Angeles photoshops. A list of over 20 businesses was compiled, with Silverline Darkroom at the top due to its chemical match. Hale requested temporary surveillance on David Cross, the last person known to interact with the victim and the darkroom owner. Though evidence wasn't enough for charges, he wanted to monitor Cross's activities for chemical data correlation. On October 18, an internal note was added to the file. Toxic evidence links to photographic processing chemicals. Case elevated to active homicide investigation. As Hale set the thick case file back on his desk, he realized what he once thought was a closed overdose accident was now a confirmed murder. All clues pointed one way. The victim was injected with industrial anesthetic in darkroom conditions, with professional precision, and the killer, or at least someone familiar with the process, was still free in the city. 3 years after the Anna Reynolds case was labeled homicide, open investigation, it remained untouched in a metal cabinet at the Los Angeles Criminal Division's archive. In late April 1982, the police department conducted a routine inventory of all evidence from the 1,970 seconds, preparing for a new California standardized storage system. Among the 148 reviewed cases was Case 79-3824, stored in Slot D12. On April 27, Evidence Supervisor Sergeant Harold Neiman and 2 staff opened the sealed D1214 slot for inspection. They cross-checked the original evidence list. Denim jacket, silver, AR. Bracelet, white shoe, Kodak film roll, Nikon F2 camera, lens with filed, off serial number, small canvas bag, and a rusted syringe from the scene. Upon opening the evidence bag, everything was accounted for except the Nikon lens. Neiman immediately noted, Item E7 missing. Check previous transfer log. The transfer log showed an entry from the 12th of March 1980, transferred to robbery, homicide, for lab inspection, by Det RH, initialed by Robert Hale. No return record existed. Staff contacted Hale, now retired for nearly a year. He insisted he never removed the lens, and suggested the lab might have borrowed it for training photos. They checked the 1,980 evidence loan records, but no requests tied to this case were found. The 3rd of May 1982, internal audit report stated, Item E7 lens, Nikon no serial number visible, unaccounted, location unknown, responsibility undetermined. The supervisor noted, possible misfile, evidence box may have been reshelved, under incorrect case ID. 2 staff searched slots D10 to D15 but found nothing. A photocopied evidence ticket for the lens was reattached to the file with a red handwritten note, missing during audit 1982. At the time, other old cases faced similar issues due to manual storage processes. Evidence boxes overlapped, labels faded, and some sealed bags degraded from high warehouse temperatures. The audit supervisor reported to command that minor losses don't significantly impact investigations as the case is suspended. However, for Case 79-3824, the missing lens was the only physical evidence beyond the victim's body potentially holding unanalyzed fingerprints or DNA. Upon hearing the news, coroner Dr. Thomas Laird noted in the file, E7 was critical, may contain perspiration trace, recommend search until located. His request wasn't approved due to budget and staffing constraints. A file copy was sent to long-term storage at Parker Center, marked Case Inactive, awaiting further leads. In late 1982, Robert Hale submitted his final retirement report, moving to suburban Riverside. In his handover, he left a brief note in the file. No new witness, no further test possible due to missing evidence. The case was removed from active investigation. In 1984, when LAPD's first digital storage system launched, Anna Reynolds' case was entered as cold case, evidence incomplete. The notes auto-populated, E7 not found during last audit. No one pursued it further, as new staff focused on recent homicides. From 1,982 to the late 1,990s, Anna Reynolds' name only appeared in lists of unsolved cases. Requests to reopen were denied due to missing original evidence. The Nikon lens, the only item potentially holding the killer's fingerprints or DNA from that final night, was considered lost forever. The final storage report, dated the 21st of November 1982, ended with a brief note: all remaining exhibits sealed, transferred to archive, case suspended. It was stamped in blue ink, filed with Sergeant Neiman's signature. From then, case 79 to 3,824 officially went cold. No one mentioned the missing lens or the name of the student who died that August night in 1979. The case sat silent in a metal drawer for over 30 years, awaiting another generation of investigators, in another era, to chance upon it again. In 2003, the Los Angeles Police Department began a modernization program for its criminal records storage system, a project called the Evidence Digitization Initiative. All old files from the 1,960 seconds to the 1,980 seconds were reviewed, scanned, and entered into a central database named the Unresolved Homicides Database, an effort to compile all unsolved cases for cold case work. Among thousands of files in the archive was case 79 to 3,824, Anna Reynolds. The file was half a hand thick, with a yellowed spine, and the cover corner still bore the stamp, inactive, evidence incomplete. That July, the Criminal Records Division's data technicians entered the entire document into the system. Scene reports, forensic photos, toxicology reports, and autopsy records were all digitized. The remaining evidence, denim jacket, silver bracelet, white shoe, film roll, and syringe, was checked for condition and resealed with new seals, transferred to a modern evidence storage facility in Van Nuys. The entry for E7, Nikon lens, missing, was marked in the electronic notes with an automatic line, item not recovered during 1982 audit. During the scanning process, the responsible technician noted overlapping details between cases: female victims, ages 20 to 30, Griffith Park area. Anna Reynolds' name appeared alongside 7 other cases from the same period, but hers was the only one involving industrial morphine and photochemicals. Due to the lack of key evidence and no DNA, the case was still ranked low potential for reopen. By September 2003, LAPD Command approved the formation of the Cold Case Homicide Unit under the Robbery Homicide Division. The new unit's mission was to review old cases that could utilize modern DNA technology or tracing methods to reopen. Eligible files were assigned electronic codes CC with the year. Case 79 to 3,824 received the new code CC0324, officially entered into the cold case system. A technical note was added. All physical exhibits sealed and stable except E7. Recommend secondary audit after database integration. That December, the preservation team rechecked the evidence bags. Anna's denim jacket, after more than 2 decades, remained intact, though the collar showed some dark stains, suspected to be old chemical marks. A small fabric sample was cut, stored separately in a 4 degrees Celsius cold drawer per new protocol. The silver bracelet, shoe, and syringe were digitally photographed and stored on dedicated drives. The Kodak film roll was stuck to its plastic core but preserved as is. The final report noted, "Physical evidence maintained. Lens E7 not located. Case remains incomplete but stable." Over the next 2 years, as the database system was completed, cold case investigators began mining for similarities between cases. The system automatically suggested cases with matching toxins or related chemicals. Results showed case 79 to 3824 as the only one in the database containing benzotriazole, marking it as an anomalous case. However, due to unavailable DNA and the absence of the most important evidence, the Nikon lens, the case was only retained as hold for future technology. By mid-2005, when the first cold case investigator training course took place at Parker Center, the Anna Reynolds file was used as a prime example of an incomplete but archival value file. Instructors noted, if future chemical or DNA analysis technology allows, this is a recoverable case sample. An electronic copy was transferred to the California State Crime Data Center in Sacramento, ensuring the file existed in duplicate backup systems. For nearly a decade afterward, no one touched case 79 to 3824. Occasionally, during system updates, the status line still displayed on screen: homicide, open, evidence incomplete. The missing Nikon lens became a dry technical note buried among thousands of data entries. Anna Reynolds' name was just a line in the database, with no one in the first-generation cold case team remembering who she was. By 2015, when LAPD transitioned to a newer system, the Integrated Forensic Network, all old cold case data was migrated to the new platform. Cases with preserved evidence were flagged for priority DNA retesting. In that list, young technician Samuel Price, who had just joined the unit, noticed an old file noting benzotriazole contamination. He added it to his voluntary review list for the next year, unaware that this was a case buried for nearly 40 years. Upon completing the transition, the project's official summary noted, all homicide cases prior to 1,990 digitized, case 79 to 3824, Anna Reynolds, preserved, verified, awaiting technological review. That file, electronically stamped for the third time, sat quietly in the central hard drive, waiting for an access command that would take over 10 more years to activate. Early 2016, after more than 10 years as a field technician, Detective Samuel Price was officially assigned to the Cold Case Homicide Unit, specializing in unsolved murder files. Among the 2,400 cases awaiting review, Price was given the Griffith Cluster Group, including those related to the Griffith Park area from the 1,960 seconds, 1,980 seconds. When accessing the Integrated Forensic Network, he spotted a little-noticed file. Case 79 to 3824, Anna Reynolds, marked, homicide, open, evidence incomplete. The note's benzotriazole contamination and lens missing made him pause. As a former chemical analysis specialist, Price understood benzotriazole was a compound rarely appearing in murders, often linked to photochemicals. He downloaded the entire original file, including 47 scene photos, 12 autopsy records, and old toxicology reports. All data matched signs of industrial morphine poisoning. Mid-2016, LAPD received a federal grant package for the Forensic Reevaluation Grant, allowing DNA retesting on old evidence using YSTR and mtDNA technology. Price submitted a formal proposal to retest the victim's denim jacket, evidence, Ioni-inch storage. The reason noted in the application: material preserved, potential biological residue under collar. The application was approved in August. On the 12th of September 2016, he and a forensics technician unsealed the evidence bag sealed for 37 years. Inside, the denim fabric had faded, with the collar still speckled with brown stains. Using a handheld microscope, they identified 2 small spots possibly from shed skin cells or old sweat. 1x 1 cm fabric pieces were cut, resealed, and sent to the Serological Research Institute, SERI, California's contracted lab. The DNA extraction process took nearly 2 months. Preliminary results returned late October. 2 distinct genetic profiles, 1 female, matching Anna Reynolds' archived sample, and 1 unidentified male. The male sample was sufficient for YSTR profiling but too weak for full comparison. Price immediately entered the data into CODIS, the national DNA database. On November 2, the result came back, no match found. The file noted, unidentified male, partial Y, STR sequence, not in CODIS. Not stopping there, Price requested the lab recheck the collar and button areas for DNA adhesion locations. The supplemental report showed the male sample concentrated on the inner collar, an area easily contacted when someone supported or carried the victim. This fit the theory of another person injecting the drug then moving the body. Additionally, microtrace samples from the jacket were analyzed. 3 short brown hairs found, without roots, but viable for mitochondrial testing. All were sent to the California Department of Justice Forensic Bureau for expanded comparison. While awaiting results, Price reviewed old files from Robert Hale, the 1979 investigator. He now lived in Riverside, 83 years old. Price contacted him to ask about the missing evidence status. Hale vaguely said, "That lens? I remember sending it back, but no one recorded it. Maybe they lost it during warehouse moves." Adding no new information, Price refocused on the DNA data. In December 2016, the official DOJ report arrived. Partial Y, STR sequence unique, possible for genealogical tracing if autosomal data recovered. This was a turning point. Though not strong enough for CODIS, the DNA sample could be used in genetic genealogy analysis, a technique the FBI was testing. Price noted, potential candidate for genealogy search, pending authorization. Early 2017, he submitted an expanded investigation proposal. In the memo, he wrote, "This case has potential to be solved with modern technology. The male DNA sample could identify identity through family trees, if open data available. Rare chemical factors match photography profession, never checked with this method." The proposal was forwarded to Cold Case Command, then presented to the Los Angeles District Attorney. After discussion, the official order was signed. Reactivation of Case CC 0324, full investigation authorized, January 2017. Price became the lead. He formed a small team of 3 investigators, a DNA expert, Dr. Linda Park from SERI, and a data technician. First task: reconstruct the entire case timeline from old files, while conducting forensic genealogy trace to identify relatives of the male DNA sample. Before the team started, Price visited the Van Nuys evidence storage again to check remaining items' condition. All sealed bags were intact, with clear new seals. He noted in the electronic log, "All exhibits verified, except E7 missing lens. No further trace." That sentence was auto-saved to the system, like a scar on the case. On the 10th of January 2017, the Anna Reynolds file was officially reopened, marked by a red status line on the central screen. Status: active homicide investigation. 37 years after the disappearance night, the Griffith Park case was brought back to LAPD's desk. And from here, a new chain of discoveries began from a tiny DNA fragment left on the denim collar, the only thing that could still speak for the deceased. Early February 2017, expanded DNA comparison results were updated from California's state database. When rechecking the gene sequence of the male sample from the victim's collar, technician Linda Park discovered an unusual overlap. A portion of the YSTR sequence matched an internal LAPD circulating DNA file, used only to exclude traces from investigators. The report displayed the name Robert Hale, former lead investigator on the 1979 case. Price was momentarily stunned reading the notice. Partial match to investigator of record. He immediately requested cross-verification to rule out lab cross-contamination. 2 days later, The Central Forensics Office confirmed the result was accurate. The DNA sequence collected on the collar had 9/16 markers matching Hale's genetic profile. Though not enough to confirm the same person, it was sufficient to warrant an internal inquiry. The report was sent to Cold Case Command and LAPD's Internal Affairs Unit, IAU. A confidential investigation was opened, Code Internal Inquiry 17-94, focusing on possible evidence manipulation or procedural contamination during storage. Price was temporarily removed from the main team to avoid conflict of interest as he discovered the match. Over 2 weeks, IAU interviewed all technicians who handled files 79 to 3,824, including 1,982 storage personnel and evidence warehouse managers. The statement showed Hale was the last to sign for evidence, specifically the Nikon lens E7, the item that vanished in the 1982 audit. The evidence room log noted, transferred to robbery, homicide by debt, RH, no return record. From there, suspicion arose. Did Hale intentionally remove evidence or tamper with the scene while on duty? IAU retrieved Hale's archived personnel file. After retiring in 1981, he moved to Riverside, no criminal record, once commended for solving 2 kidnappings. However, his personnel file had a 1,980 note, unauthorized access to evidence room, warning issued. This note was never public. Price read that and felt the case increasingly hard to distinguish between technical error and intentional cover-up. On February 14, the internal audit team opened the cold case data vault to review the evidence movement chain. In the 2003 manually entered data line, the technician who scanned old files stated the Nikon lens was marked missing prior to digital transfer. No evidence showed Hale handled items after retirement. Yet, cross-checking the 1,979 log revealed an odd detail. In the scene report, fingerprints on the Nikon camera were described as partial match unknown, but original photos were missing in the digitized copy. Only Hale's handwritten note remained. Smudged print, possibly investigator. This matched the theory that his own fingerprints appeared on evidence. IAU expanded the inquiry. If Hale's DNA truly adhered to the victim's collar, it could be from handling evidence without gloves, or the fabric contaminated during storage. Technicians admitted that in the 1,970 seconds, 1,980 seconds, evidence preservation was rudimentary, with sealed bags often opened for rephotographing or training displays. However, the detail of Hale withdrawing the lens without return remained murky. The internal investigation was temporarily kept secret, but news leaked, upsetting some retired officers. The Los Angeles Times, in March 2017, ran a short article, DNA links former LAPD detective to 1,979 unsolved murder case. Immediately, LAPD's media office issued a statement. Partial DNA overlap does not imply guilt. Investigation limited to procedural contamination. Hale, when approached by reporters, only said briefly, "If that sample is mine, it must be from touching the evidence during collection. That was my job then." He declined further comment. While IAU continued verification, Price quietly monitored from outside. He felt the match was just a technical discrepancy, as the collected DNA was too weak and in an unusual location, inner collar, not sleeves or outer surface. He proposed retesting the sample at an independent lab. On March 27, a new sample was sent to Veritas Forensic Laboratory in San Diego for reanalysis using touch DNA differentiation. 3 weeks later, results returned. The main DNA on the collar was not Hale's, only partial overlap in 2 markers due to storage cross-contamination. The report affirmed. Profile inconclusive. Partial contamination likely from handling during evidence collection. IAU closed the inquiry in May 2017, concluding insufficient grounds to charge or discipline anyone. The internal report noted, evidence handling error probable, no indication of intentional tampering. However, the appendix still stated, Detective R&A Hale had last physical custody of missing item E7. Lens not recovered. No further action recommended. Hale sent a handwritten letter, thanking Price for wanting to clarify everything, while expressing regret that old procedures tainted the case. In a short phone conversation, he said, "If I could do it over, I'd keep everything in a glass box. But back then, we didn't have the technology to understand the value of every fiber." After IAU closed the internal file, Price was restored full investigative authority. He returned to his desk, looking at the screen displaying the case status: homicide, active. The male unknown DNA remained unidentified, but he knew at least Hale could be ruled out as a suspect. A man inadvertently drawn into suspicion due to outdated procedures. However, while reviewing all data from Veritas Lab, Price noticed a technical note at the page bottom. Sample 2B, minute trace of secondary male contributor, not matching Hale or database entries. That small line opened another direction, where a second DNA sequence existed weak enough to be overlooked, but entirely distinct, never compared. Price circled back, noting in the electronic log, trace 2B, unknown male, reprocess for genealogical tracing. As he closed the file, he knew the case had temporarily settled, but the truth still lay somewhere among the aging evidence bags and 30-year-old storage errors. In his May report to command, he wrote briefly, "Internal inquiry completed. No misconduct proven. Missing lens still unresolved. DNA search to continue." The Griffith Park case, which seemed to veer toward internal misconduct, returned to its starting point, except now, amid unmatched genetic sequences, a new trace was emerging. In mid-June 2017, after the internal investigation closed, Detective Samuel Price returned to the cold case office with a singular focus. Pursue the unidentified DNA sequence, sample 2B, recently detected by the Veritas Lab. The technical report indicated it was a faint secondary profile, with only 11 clear markers, but sufficient for genetic genealogy analysis, a new method being tested by the FBI in cold cases nationwide. Price requested command's permission to use GEDmatch, a platform allowing anonymous DNA samples to be compared against public genetic profiles of millions who took ancestry tests. On June 26, sample 2B was coded and sent to GEDmatch as anonymous sequence, subject M79. 3 weeks later, the system returned a result, a distant match estimated third cousin with the Cross family in Southern California. Data showed at least 6 individuals in the database shared genetic ties to 2B, 3 living in the Pasadena, Glendale, and Burbank areas, where Anna Reynolds studied and worked. Price narrowed the scope, requesting the data analysis team to trace the family tree. Within 2 weeks, LAPD's genealogy specialist, Sarah Min, reconstructed the family tree using GEDmatch data, combined with public demographic records, marriage registrations, and birth certificates. Sample 2B linked to a branch stemming from Charles and Lillian Cross, who settled in Los Angeles in the 1940s. They had 3 sons, Alan, David, and Richard. Alan died in the Vietnam War, Richard in 1992. The only surviving son was David Cross, born 1935, now 82, residing in Pasadena. Sarah sent Price the report, noting, based on shared centimorgan range and family geography, David Cross is the most probable close relative to sample M79. When Price read the name, his heart skipped a beat. Cross, the same surname as the person in the original 1979 file, David Cross, owner of Silverline Darkroom, who signed for Anna's film role the night she vanished. Back then, Cross was 36. 38 years had passed. Was this mere coincidence, or the final evidence time hadn't erased? Price immediately checked civil records. Pasadena tax records confirmed a David Cross, born the 4th of March 1935, owning a 2-story home on Orange Grove Boulevard. He was a retired photographer who once ran a studio called Silverline, closed since 1984. Everything matched perfectly. Price noted, subject M79, likely David Cross, same as original POI 1979. He presented the finding to Cold Case Command. An urgent meeting was held on the 2nd of August 2017. There, Price laid out the logical chain. DNA 2B Cross family, Pasadena area, David Cross, former suspect. Some veteran officers were skeptical. He's over 80, maybe not even alive. But Price stood firm. If he was the last to interact with the victim, we must verify. A background check order was signed during the meeting. The following week, a covert surveillance team gathered information. They confirmed Cross lived alone, his wife deceased in 2005, no children. He rarely left home, except for pharmacy or grocery trips nearby. A neighbor described him as kind, quiet, often photographing birds with an old film camera. One afternoon, Price and a forensic agent, posing as utility workers, collected indirect DNA from Cross's door handle and a discarded water cup left on his porch table. Both were sealed and sent to Siri for comparison. On August 18, results returned. DNA from the door handle matched sample M79 completely. The report stated, 100% match within statistical margin. Profile M79 equals David Cross. This meant the tiny DNA sample on the victim's collar was Cross's. After nearly 4 decades, the man investigated and cleared in 1979 was back at the case's center. Price requested formal surveillance and re-interviewed old witnesses. A few Silverline darkroom workers from the late 1970s were tracked via tax records. Among them, film processing technician Howard Neely, 70, confirmed. Cross worked with a young student named Anna. She came by at night, and once I saw them argue when she spilled developer. Neely also recalled that a day after her disappearance was reported, Cross closed the shop early without explanation. All was recorded and backed up. Price reconstructed the timeline. August 12. Anna left the concert at 10:45 p.m. 11:15. Her Greek theater pass logged a final swipe. Her car was found 3 days later, headlights still on. The toxin in her body was industrial morphine with benzotriazole, a photo darkroom chemical. Now, Cross's DNA was on her collar. The final puzzle piece had surfaced. On August 21, Price submitted a 74-page report to the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. The conclusion read, based on newly recovered DNA evidence, genetic genealogy, and corroborating witness statements, probable cause exists to identify David Cross as primary suspect in the homicide of Anna Reynolds, case 79-3824. The DA approved a 30-day financial and telecom surveillance warrant for Cross. In the weeks that followed, investigators monitored his activities. Cross lived quietly, tending his garden daily, sometimes burning trash in his backyard. One evening, Price observed through binoculars as Cross brought out an old wooden box, opened it, and tossed it into a burning bin. When the surveillance team sifted the ashes, they found a round metal fragment engraved with Nick, remnants of the Nikon lens missing from evidence since 1982. Quick forensic analysis confirmed the alloy and engraving matched 1970 Nikon f2 lenses, as described in the original scene report. This established Cross not only as a suspect, but as the one who held the missing evidence. But how did an item from LAPD's evidence vault end up with him, when the system recorded it lost in inventory? Price realized the answer might lie in Cross's connection to a former 1980 forensic lab employee who taught crime scene photography to police. The August 2017 report concluded with a line Price typed in his electronic log. Genealogy trace completed. Match. David Cross. 82. Pasadena. Kea. DNA confirmed. Lens fragment recovered. Case elevated to active pursuit. 38 years after that August night, they had a name again, and this time, undeniable evidence. By late September 2017, as case 79-3824 was reactivated, news of David Cross's DNA, matching the sample from the victim's jacket, spread in online investigative communities. A group of veteran sleuths on Web Cold Files, a forum for amateur researchers tracking California cold case clues, reposted the Griffith Park case's developments from 1979 onward. Among them was Marcy Dean, 41, a freelance photographer in Long Beach who wrote extensively on manual film techniques. She was particularly drawn to the benzotriazole in photochemicals detail mentioned in a Los Angeles Herald summary from the 10th of September 2017. She believed if Cross was indeed Silverline Darkroom's owner, some of his processed films or materials might still exist in vintage photo collector circles. 3 weeks later, Marcy found an odd eBay listing. Unprocessed film canisters. Silverline Burbank lot, circa 1,970 seconds. The seller noted the films came from a 1,990 Pasadena warehouse clearout. The listing photo was blurry, but Marcy recognized a label on a canister lid. Batch 12. A divided by 8 to 79. The month of the victim's disappearance. She immediately bought the lot of 6 35mm Kodak Ektachrome rolls for $68 and took them to a vintage film restoration lab in Santa Ana for processing. As images emerged on the film, Marcy held her breath. The first 4 rolls showed only landscapes and darkroom interiors. But on the 5th roll, frame 17 was clear. A brown-haired, middle-aged man adjusting a camera, with a young blonde woman in a denim jacket matching Anna Reynolds' 1979 description behind him. The next frame showed them standing before a door with a faint, Silverline Darkroom, open late sign. The interior light cast a glow, reflecting the neon style typical of 1970 signage. Marcy used a high-resolution scanner to extract frame metadata, revealing developed 12A divided by Silverline divided by AUG 79 divided by night session, a stamp from Silverline's internal printing machine, used only during night processing. She sent all data, including scanned photos and metadata, to a lawyer friend who worked with LAPD, asking them to forward it to Detective Price. When Price received the email, he immediately presented it to command. The metadata matched the 12th of August 1979, the night Anna vanished. This proved Cross not only knew the victim, but was with her at Silverline after the concert, contradicting his 1979 claim of leaving the shop at 9:30 p.m. Price promptly applied for a special search warrant for the former Silverline Darkroom site. Though closed since 1984, and now a small electronics shop, California law allowed police to search for case-relevant evidence in unresolved homicides. On October 6, the Los Angeles County Court approved Warrant 17W9143. The next morning, Price and 2 forensic technicians arrived at 1427 Riverside Drive, Burbank. The current owner, Kellen Moore, cooperated and allowed access to the basement, once the darkroom. The low-ceilinged space had walls with old, moisture-proof paint stains, still faintly chemical-scented. Technicians used a 3D scanner to map the area and a metal detector, finding an anomaly behind a west wall electronics shelf, a cylindrical metal object, about 10 centimeters long, buried in the brick. After removing a few bricks, they retrieved a Nikon f2 lens wrapped in a silver cloth bag. Its serial number was filed off, but the engraving style matched the missing E7 from 1982. Beneath the wall recess was a small tin box containing 3 more film rolls, each labeled Batch 12, B divided by 8 to 79. All were sealed and sent to the Van Nuys Forensic Lab. Preliminary analysis confirmed. Lens optical pattern matches photographs taken on site 1979 divided by corrosion, consistent with long-term wall concealment. The evidence was officially relabeled E7. Recovered, and re-entered into the file after 35 years. Meanwhile, Marcy Dean was called to Parker Center to give a statement. She detailed the film purchase process and confirmed no technical alterations. When asked how she accessed metadata, she said, Silverline used a Noritsu QF7 printer, which embeds batch and date codes per print. It's unforgeable without the original machine. Price verified this, matching the 1978 registered model in Cross's lab. This discovery added 3 new pieces of evidence. 1. A photo of Cross and Anna in the same frame. 2. Metadata confirming capture and processing on the 12th of August 1979. 3. The recovered Nikon lens matching the missing evidence description. All were legally obtained and proved Cross's direct contact with the victim at the time of her death. On October 10, an updated file was sent to the district attorney with a request to expand the search to Cross's former Pasadena home. In the report's conclusion, Price wrote, "Evidence recovered through civilian sleuth initiative. Items confirmed direct contact between suspect David Cross and victim Anna Reynolds at Silverline darkroom during night of disappearance. Missing lens retrieved. Chain of custody reestablished." News of the search spread quickly. Local papers called it a breakthrough in the Griffith Park case after nearly 40 years. Marcy Dean, the sleuth who sparked the lead, declined media interviews. Price, in an internal note, wrote briefly, "An outsider did what we missed for 4 decades. With the recovered film and lens, the Anna Reynolds case finally had DNA, physical evidence, and photographic witness testimony." From there, LAPD officially moved the case into active criminal prosecution, paving the way for the next step: searching David Cross's private residence, and finally confronting the man justice had overlooked for nearly half a lifetime. Early on the 11th of October 2017, after the Los Angeles County Court approved the expanded search warrant 17W9172, the LAPD cold case team, led by Detective Samuel Price, returned to 1427 Riverside Drive, the former site of David Cross's Silverline darkroom. The new warrant allowed them to excavate the entire basement and western wall area, including permission to dismantle the old concrete foundation, with the goal of searching for potential evidence related to the 1979 homicide. Accompanying Price were a forensic field team, a SERI DNA technician, and 2 officers from the district attorney's office. The former darkroom space had changed almost entirely, but patches of rough black waterproof paint and yellowed mold stains remained. As technicians began dismantling the bricks behind the wall where the Nikon lens was found the previous day, the screech of the drill cut through, and cement dust filled the air. Minutes later, a worker spotted an unusually large gap, a deliberate hiding spot. Inside was a decayed silver-gray cloth bag, tied tightly with nylon cord. It contained 3 items: another Nikon f2 lens, an old denim jacket, and a glass syringe with dark brown residue. Police immediately halted work, photographed the items, recorded precise coordinates, and sealed the evidence bag. Price, wearing gloves, conducted a preliminary inspection. The jacket was slightly torn at the shoulder, with rusted brass buttons, but the Levi's logo was still legible. The inner collar had AR, hand-stitched, matching Anna Reynolds' initials. The fabric's fading differed from the denim jacket collected in 1979, meaning the victim owned at least 2 similar jackets, or Cross kept another as a memento or to swap with the real evidence. The syringe still had its needle attached, half broken. Faint crystalline traces remained inside, signs of dried residue. All items were sealed and labeled E19 to E21. On-site, the forensic team used a spectral light to scan further and found dried chemical droplets on the wall, glowing purple. Samples were collected for testing. Preliminary results by technician Linda Park confirmed. The denim sleeve bore DNA fully matching Anna Reynolds' profile, while the collar had a secondary profile, David Cross's DNA, matching the sample from his Pasadena door handle. The syringe residue tested positive for morphine and benzotriazole, identical to the chemical formula in the victim's 1979 toxicology report. Price stared at the jacket, feeling as if he stood before evidence hidden for nearly 40 years. Each detail reconstructed that fateful night. Anna's real jacket was swapped before reaching the evidence vault, replaced with a substitute to erase Cross's DNA. This explained why the 2016 DNA sample was weak. It wasn't the real jacket, just a decoy. The true jacket was hidden in the workshop wall, alongside the syringe used to inject the drug. At the scene, Price halted work and reported to Cold Case Command. The district attorney's office immediately opened a subfile, Recovered Evidence Verification, Silverline, 2017. The evidence was sealed, transported by secure vehicle to the Van Nuys Forensic Center, with the entire excavation filmed to ensure a legal chain of custody. While samples were sent off, Price and the technical team reviewed the wall layout. Less than a meter from the hiding spot, they found a sealed ventilation pipe. After cutting it open, they discovered a 35mm Kodak film canister wrapped in moisture-proof plastic. When processed, only 2 frames were clear. One showed a metal table in the darkroom, and the second was a close-up of a hand holding a syringe, light faintly reflecting off a camera lens. The hand had a small mole near the wrist, a detail matching David Cross's 1,979 identification records. 3 days later, the forensic lab completed the official DNA results. The 47-page report, titled Forensic DNA Comparison, Items E19, E21, Silver Line Recovery, confirmed. Denim jacket fabric E19 contained female DNA, fully matching Anna Reynolds' profile. The collar had male DNA matching David Cross. Syringe residue E21 contained industrial morphine mixed with benzotriazole, identical to the 1,979 toxicology report. Final conclusion. All recovered items originate from same contact event as victim's death. Reading this, Price knew they had found direct physical evidence linking Cross to the scene, something 1,979 police never had. The Nikon lens, the real denim jacket, the syringe with toxic residue, all hidden behind the wall of Cross's workplace. On the 15th of October 2017, the case file updated its status. Case 79 to 3,824. Active investigation. Physical evidence recovered. At Parker Center, the report was sent directly to the Chief District Attorney. On the electronic system, a line appeared. Evidence link established. Suspect. Cross. David. M. Divided by 82. Pasadena. CA. That same day, the forensic team returned to Silverline to check for residual traces. Using UV light on the floor, they found a differently colored cement patch as if recently patched. Drilling gently, they uncovered a thin plastic bag containing a small fabric scrap and Anna Reynolds' warped but legible UCLA student ID from 1978. All doubts of coincidence ended. That evening, Price returned to the office, opened the digital file, and entered the day's final note. Recovered authentic physical evidence from Silverline Studio. DNA and chemical results confirmed direct involvement of David Cross in death of Anna Reynolds. Case officially escalated to active homicide investigation. 38 years of waiting, and the final clues had emerged from the dark wall where they were buried with the killer's silence. With that, Los Angeles finally had a chance to close the Griffith Park case with truth, not suspicion. In late October 2017, as the district attorney's office finalized the case against David Cross, the California Forensic Office proposed an additional genealogy DNA verification to reinforce the biological chain, a mandatory step for cases with aged evidence samples. Price agreed, believing it a routine formality. But less than 2 weeks later, the extended genealogy results returned, and the first line stunned the unit. Genetic match, 99.76%, with Lucas Cross, male, 48, Santa Barbara County. Lucas Cross was David Cross's only son, born in 1969, just 10 years old when Anna Reynolds died. The system auto-noted, possible biological match, parental relation, uncertain. Reading the results, Price thought the server had errored. He immediately requested Siri recheck the entire DNA sequencing process, but the lab confirmed. The denim jacket DNA fully matched Lucas Cross, not David. Per protocol, LAPD had to act. On the 2nd of November 2017, under a prosecutor's detention order, Lucas Cross was arrested at his Santa Barbara home for questioning regarding involvement with evidence and DNA traces in the Anna Reynolds case. News spread instantly. Headlines blared, son of photographer suspected in 1979 UCLA student murder. Lucas, a computer engineer, was shocked when handcuffed in front of his family. In the interrogation room, he insisted he never knew Anna Reynolds, never worked at Silverline, and was a child living with his mother in Pasadena in 1979. Police recorded his statement but collected a direct DNA sample for comparison. 3 days later, the comparison reiterated. 100% match. Price didn't believe it. He reviewed the original file. All traces, scene photos, and DNA pointed to Cross Sr. He had a history with photochemicals, a motive, and his workplace hid all the evidence. How could the son be involved? Price suspected lab DNA cross-contamination. He contacted Dr. Linda Park at Siri, who had assisted with initial tests. She checked the sample extraction machine's log and found an anomaly. The same day the denim jacket was analyzed, the machine ran another batch of 3 reference DNA samples, including a comparison profile for a suspect's relative from a 2004 Pasadena theft case, Lucas Cross, never removed from the internal database. During simultaneous batch processing, a minute amount of Lucas's DNA likely contaminated the new sample via automated pipette. Park sent an official report, high probability of cross-contamination between samples M79A, David Cross, and M79B, Lucas Cross. Upon receiving confirmation, Price immediately reported to the prosecutor. On November 9, Lucas Cross was released unconditionally after 7 days in custody. LAPD issued a public press release, apologizing, explaining the error as a lab technical mistake. The Los Angeles Times published. DNA contamination clears suspect. Cold case mishandled. Public opinion split. Some criticized police haste. Others saw the quick disclosure as a sign of improved transparency. For Price, it was a heavy blow. All the trust he placed in genetic evidence wavered. He had to pause prosecution, requesting independent retests at Veritas Forensic and FBI Quantico DNA Division. Both confirmed the denim jacket DNA was a mix of 2 individuals, the victim and a male, matching David Cross, with no trace of Lucas. The report concluded. Original series sequence corrupted by secondary contamination. Price met Lucas in Santa Barbara to personally apologize. He said briefly, "I know you're not involved, but this case needs absolute accuracy." Lucas replied, "If my father did this, I want the truth. Whatever it is, he has to face it." He signed a waiver allowing LAPD to use his DNA profile for future exclusion. Within LAPD, the mistaken arrest prompted a review. A 38-page internal report pinpointed the cause. Cross, contamination during autosampler cycle, human oversight. No one was disciplined, but all cold case samples were henceforth sent to 2 independent labs before results were announced. After the incident, Price returned to the office late at night. He reopened old scene photos, staring at the darkroom wall, where the real jacket and syringe were found. The physical evidence remained unchanged. Only Cross Sr. could have hidden those items, and only he had reason to conceal them. Veritas's final analysis added a technical note that caught Price's attention. Traces of long-chain benzotriazole variant, unique to Silverline formulation, likely synthesized manually. It was exclusive chemical evidence only someone mixing Silverline solutions would know. On the 15th of November 2017, the case reverted to active investigation. Primary suspect reaffirmed, David Cross. The report concluded, false match corrected, chain of custody verified, subject to continue under surveillance. Price closed the file, exhaling softly. The error was fixed, but the incident made him more cautious than ever. In his end-of-day note, he wrote, "One false lead, almost buried the truth again. Case continues. Focus restored." The Griffith Park case was back on track, pointing to the only living man who held the secret of that August night for nearly 40 years, with nowhere left to hide. In early December 2017, evidence samples from Silverline Darkroom were sent to the California Forensic Chemical Analysis Center, CAFTL, for chemical composition testing. An independent lab was designated to ensure objectivity after the prior DNA contamination issue. Among the samples, the most critical were the syringe residue E21, chemical stains on the darkroom wall, and the denim jacket E19 with chemical streaks. The analysis team, led by Dr. Irene Lowell, took nearly 3 weeks to run gas chromatography, mass spectrometry, and data comparison. On December 22, the 62-page report was delivered to LAPD cold case. The opening line of the conclusion stunned Samuel Price. Compound identified as 4-benzotriazole methyl acetate. Variant, unique to formula registered under Silverline Chemicals, patent number CA441227, filed by David Cross, 1977. In other words, the compound found in Anna's body and on the victim's jacket was a proprietary chemical product of David Cross, patented 2 years earlier for commercial photography purposes. This compound did not exist on the open market, nor was it distributed outside Silverline's system. The molecular signature in the sample perfectly matched the formula in the patent file at the California Intellectual Property Office. Alongside the DNA, this was the final piece confirming a direct link between Cross and the production of the solution that killed Anna Reynolds. Additionally, CAFTL technicians discovered that metal dust on the Nikon lens recovered from the workshop wall contained an old fingerprint. Using vacuum metal deposition, a technique to recover aged prints with gold vapor, they reconstructed a clear right index fingerprint. Compared to Cross's 1,978 business license application prints, it was a perfect match. The technician's note read, "Latent fingerprint recovered from Nikon lens wall residue matches David Cross. Probability is greater than 1 inch 100 million. And they're RILs." Reading the report, Price knew they had reached an undeniable threshold. All evidence chains, DNA, chemicals, fingerprints, pointed to one person. No more doubts, no more discrepancies. On December 26, he drafted an arrest warrant request, attaching the full evidence file, CAFTL's chemical analysis, recovered fingerprint photos, corrected DNA report, and documentation of Cross's proprietary benzotriazole formula. In the petition, Price wrote, "The compound causing the victim's death was exclusively manufactured by the suspect's company Silverline, and no other source or individual had access to this formula. The recovered fingerprint and DNA evidence link directly to the suspect. Probable cause for arrest is established." On December 28, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office held a closed meeting with the investigation team. Chief Prosecutor Martha Villanueva reviewed the documents and asked one question: "Can we prove only Cross could produce this compound?" Price replied, "Yes. It's his patented formula, and the composition is an exact match." She nodded, signed the arrest warrant request, and the file was sent to the Los Angeles Superior Court for review. On the 30th of December 2017, Judge Evelyn Cho signed arrest warrant 17AH7321 for David Cross, with charges: 1. Murder in the second degree, 2. Destruction and concealment of evidence, and 3. Tampering with a homicide investigation. The court's notes required limited arrest due to the suspect's age of 82 and recommended execution under controlled medical conditions. That evening, Price and 2 officers went to Cross's Pasadena home for pre-arrest observation. Through binoculars, he saw Cross living as usual, sitting on his porch with a small notebook, occasionally glancing at the streetlight glow on his bougainvillea. The peaceful scene made Price think of the decades the case lay buried. This man had lived in the city for 40 years, atop the evidence he created. On the morning of December 31, the arrest team arrived at 7:15. Price led, reading the warrant. Cross didn't resist. He only said, "I knew you'd come, just a matter of time." Handcuffed, he remained calm, his gaze distant, as if looking through the crowd. Inside the house, police seized old notebooks and unlabeled glass vials. Quick analysis showed their contents matched Silverline's 1977 formula. That afternoon at LAPD headquarters, Price finalized the arrest report. The electronic system auto-updated the case status. Case 70, 9-3824. Active homicide investigation, arrest executed. Below, a note appeared. Primary evidence: proprietary chemical compound registered to suspect, latent fingerprint recovered, DNA confirmed. After nearly 40 years, the Griffith Park case crossed the line from suspicion to proof. No longer yellowed reports, faint DNA sequences, or speculation. Now, It was settled in science. The hand that mixed benzotriazole for photo exposure also crafted the death of a photography-loving student in 1979. With the judge's signature, justice finally knocked on the Pasadena house, where only silence and the smell of old chemicals had lingered for years. In early January 2018, while David Cross was held awaiting trial at the Los Angeles County Jail, Detective Samuel Price's team continued reviewing old witness files to finalize the indictment. Chief Prosecutor Martha Villanueva requested any testimony proving Cross's direct contact with the victim beyond the Silverline night to strengthen the murder with intent charge. While reviewing Silverline Darkroom's administrative records, Price found a faint detail. Mark Ellison, a photo processing technician from 1977 to 1980. Ellison's name briefly appeared in a 1979 interrogation note, marked incomplete, follow-up pending, then vanished from the official archive. Checking California tax records, Price confirmed Ellison, now 63, lived in Fresno, working as a vintage camera repairman. On January 5, Price and a special task force officer drove over 4 hours to Fresno to meet Ellison. He lived in a small wooden house with a moss-covered roof, a sign out front reading, "Camera repairs since 1985. When Price introduced himself and showed Anna Reynolds' photo, Ellison stood silent for a moment, then said softly, "I've been waiting for this day for over 30 years. He invited them in, poured coffee, and retrieved a wrinkled envelope from a cabinet, containing a photocopy of a statement he submitted to police in 1979. The top read, "Statement of M. Ellison, 8.79, Burbank PD. In the statement, Ellison wrote that on the night of the 12th of August 1979, he worked the late shift at Silverline. Around 11 p.m., Cross returned to the darkroom despite saying he'd leave early. He brought a young blonde woman in a denim jacket. She seemed barely conscious, her head slumped on his shoulder. I asked if she needed help. Cross said, "My student, she's dizzy from developer fumes. I'll take her outside for air." Cross then supported her to a gray van parked out front and drove toward Griffith Park. Ellison remembered the engine sound echoing through the door. The next morning, reading about a female body found in Griffith Park, he went to Burbank PD to report, but the desk officer took a brief note, saying, "That's LAPD's case, not our jurisdiction." No one followed up. Price asked why he kept the photocopy. Ellison replied, "In 1980, I left Silverline. While clearing my desk, I found the statement in the office trash. I copied it on the office machine and kept it, just in case it was needed." When Price asked why he only spoke now, Ellison sighed. "I was scared of Cross. He knew where I lived, knew I had a wife and kids. When I heard he sold the shop and moved, I felt relieved. When I saw he was arrested, I knew it was time to tell." Price seized the copy, photographed it, signed for it, and took a formal statement. He also requested Ellison's DNA to strengthen the witness file. Results showed his biological markers didn't match any evidence samples, confirming his statement's consistency. Back in Los Angeles, Price requested the archive team locate the original statement. After 3 days, a clerk found a faded envelope labeled Burbank, 79, misfiled in a 1981 Photoshop robbery case. Inside was Ellison's original statement, stamped by Burbank PD but never forwarded to LAPD, lost due to interagency coordination failures at the time. Ellison's statement was sent to the district attorney's office. In a supplemental report filed the 11th of January 2018, Prosecutor Villanueva wrote, "Witness Ellison's testimony directly places suspect David Cross with the victim within hours of her death and provides physical observation of the victim in unconscious state. This testimony corroborates recovered DNA and chemical evidence." That day, technicians cross-checked Ellison's description with 1,979 Silverline vehicle records. They found a gray Chevrolet van, plate 1 HKS 477, registered to David Cross, deregistered in 1980. The report concluded, vehicle matches witness description, no record of disposal. From these findings, The prosecutor added 4 points to the indictment. 1. Cross was seen driving the victim in an unconscious state. 2. The darkroom was the only source of benzotriazole matching the victim's body compound. 3. The real jacket and syringe with that compound were found in Silverline's wall. 4. The suspect had motive to erase traces when evidence vanished in 1982. The indictment expanded to include administering controlled substance causing death. On the 15th of January 2018, Price visited Ellison to thank him. The 63-year-old said, "I thought what I saw would be buried forever. Now that girl can rest." The words silenced Price. He noted them in his personal notebook, the final line under Ellison, final link between Cross and victim alive. Local media quickly reported, new witness emerges after 39 years. Ellison's story not only bolstered the indictment, but convinced the public Cross had deceived the legal system for decades. The district attorney's office announced the case would go to trial in Q2 2018. That evening, updating the electronic system, Price saw Case 79 to 3824, active homicide investigation. Witness corroboration obtained. He knew the investigation had reached a point no error could reverse. What Mark Ellison saw in 1979, combined with DNA, chemicals, and fingerprints, sealed every defense door. For the first time in 4 decades, justice for Anna Reynolds had a witness on her side. On the morning of the 20th of January 2018, Detective Samuel Price and LAPD's Special Task Force returned to Pasadena, executing expanded search warrant 18W0241, approved by the Superior Court 2 days prior. Target: David Cross's private home, central suspect in the 1979 Griffith Park case. The warrant allowed seizure of all optical equipment, film, photography items, chemical notebooks, and property potentially linked to victim Anna Reynolds. When police entered, Cross was in his back office, calmly setting down a teacup, saying, "I knew this would come sooner or later." He didn't resist. In the old darkroom behind the house, where Cross once processed commercial photos, the forensic team found a black-painted metal box hidden under the floorboards, wrapped in plastic. Inside, 4 unprocessed 35mm Kodak film rolls, each labeled in marker, the 12th of August 2079, Park A, Park B, Test Lens #2, Model A, R. When viewed under preservation light, faint frames showed a female body lying sideways on a cement surface, light reflecting off the Nikon lens found at Silverline. At the end of one roll, a shadow of the photographer appeared, lean figure, left wrist, wearing a steel band Seiko watch, matching Cross's model. On a wooden shelf by the wall, police seized a small red velvet ring box containing a silver ring engraved AR, matching Anna Reynolds' initials, and the stitching on the Silverline denim jacket. Preliminary analysis showed wear marks on the ring aligned with 1,979 autopsy photos of the victim's hand. Nearby, the team found a brown leather chemical notebook labeled Silverline Formulas 1970, 1980. Inside were dense handwritten recipes, codes like BXTRA2, R-test, and a scrawled note, adjust dose for sedation. On the final page, Price paused at a black ink passage. She stopped breathing before the exposure finished. No one will ever find out. All evidence was sealed under codes E33 to E41, photographed, videotaped, and sent to the Van Nuys forensic lab. As the search ended, Price stepped into the yard, seeing the county medical van waiting. He read the arrest warrant to Cross. David Cross, you are under arrest for second-degree murder, destruction and concealment of evidence, and tampering with a homicide investigation. You have the right to remain silent. Cross didn't resist. He only whispered, "You found the ring?" "I kept it to remember, not to hide." Price didn't respond. At downtown LAPD headquarters, interrogation began at 7:45 p.m. Cross sat upright, hands lightly cuffed to the chair, facing Price and an assistant prosecutor. Asked about the film, he admitted photographing Anna because she wanted to pose for a Silverline cover shoot, but denied killing her. "She took drugs before I knew. I was just trying to help. Price placed the chemical notebook before him, pointing to a just dose for sedation. Cross was silent for nearly a minute, then said, I was just noting technical mixes. No one could understand my formulas from those numbers. Asked about the AR ring. He said, she left it in the darkroom. I meant to return it, but she was gone the next morning. I thought the police took it. An obvious lie, as the item was found in his home, carefully stored in a velvet box. During the 3-hour interrogation, Cross denied guilt, but each answer contradicted the case file and Mark Ellison's witness statement. When Price read him the 1,979 statement about Ellison seeing him drive an unconscious woman away from Silverline, Cross gave a dry laugh. If you believe a half-mad photo tech, you'll never solve any mystery. By 11:10 p.m., the prosecutor ended the session. Cross was transferred to the Los Angeles County Jail, 5B Medical Wing, for detention pending prosecution under special conditions, due to his age and heart condition. Police seized all films, notebooks, the ring, and optical equipment. The case system updated its status. Case 79,324. Active homicide arrest confirmed. The final note in the report read, recovered unprocessed films and personal items directly connect suspect to victim, motive and intent under review. Subject detained pending grand jury indictment. As the van carrying the suspect left the temporary holding area, Price looked through the glass, seeing Cross sit silently, eyes gazing toward Griffith Park where the story began 40 years ago, and where the past had finally caught up with him. In late January 2018, as Cross's case prepared for the grand jury, Detective Samuel Price received a supplemental technical report from the California Forensic Office. During a routine forensic DNA integrity audit, the system flagged an unusual access. An internal account, J. Cortez Lab, had downloaded and edited the original DNA data file for case 79-3824 on the night of January 12, after samples were sealed and stored. The log showed modification. Source file M79, A adjusted. Metadata mismatch. Price immediately called Sari's lab director for confirmation. The reply was curt. No one on our team was authorized to access it after the report closed. Cortez quit 3 days ago. No one knows why. The name James Cortez caught Price's attention instantly. He recalled Cortez as the technician who first handled the 2B DNA sample in 2016, identifying the secondary profile that reopened the case. Cortez was quiet, meticulous, and often worked late at the Van Nuys lab. No one suspected he could be the darkest link. Price requested Cortez's personnel file. It revealed he worked at a technical photography company, Silverline Imaging Corporation, from 1998-2001, founded by whom? David Cross. After Silverline dissolved, Cortez shifted to forensics, studied biochemistry, and joined Sari in 2006. His hiring records omitted any connection to Cross. This was enough for Price to open an internal investigation. On February 2, per prosecutor Villanueva's order, police went to Cortez's Glendale home. The door was locked, but his car was parked outside. Breaking in, they found his computer on, displaying GeneMapper DNA analysis software. In the temp folder, a security technician recovered a hidden file named M79 Override, CQ, containing an edited DNA sequence, removing 2 cross-matching markers, and adding 3 false ones to make the sample appear unidentified. In the digital trash, an unsent email draft read, "You'll owe me for this, old man." Cortez was arrested at a coffee shop less than a mile away, trying to wipe his phone. At LAPD headquarters, he initially denied involvement, claiming he checked the wrong folder. But confronted with evidence, access logs, fake data, and old personnel records showing he worked under Cross, he went silent. By midnight, under pressure from prosecutor Villanueva, Cortez admitted, "I owed him. Cross saved my job in 1999. I thought I was just helping him buy time." In the recorded interrogation, Cortez detailed, in mid-2016, when the Griffith Park case was re-entered into the system, Cross somehow learned of it and contacted him. He called, said he just wanted to see the file to ensure no misunderstandings. I thought he was curious, but then he sent me cash, called it thanks. Cortez admitted to subtly altering the DNA file during the system's platform transition, blurring Cross's sequence and creating a vague secondary sample to misdirect the investigation. This caused Price's initial weak sample, requiring genealogy tracing. Asked why he accessed the file again in January 2018, he said, "I was scared everything would unravel after Cross's arrest, so I tried to wipe the metadata." Forensic experts confirmed his confession matched the data. Login traces from Cortez's home IP, timestamps aligning with edits, and the fake file stored on a secondary drive. The unsent email, "Beyond, you'll owe me for this," included an attached photo of Cross in Pasadena, proving they met in person. The 14th of June 2016, bank transfer showed Cross sent $4,500 to Cortez's account via a dummy company, SLC Consulting. On February 4, Cortez was charged with tampering with forensic evidence, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to pervert the course of justice. In his initial hearing, he bowed his head, admitting everything. "I didn't think he was a killer. I just wanted him to get a fair trial, but I was wrong." When the prosecutor asked, "Did you know your actions nearly derailed the investigation?" Cortez whispered, "I know. I didn't expect he was actually guilty." Cortez's confession was deemed the most shocking twist since the case reopened. Not only was he the technician who helped Price recover the initial DNA, but his direct tie to Cross and the lab, Justice's supposed impartial core, stunned all. The media dubbed it the lab betrayal. A Los Angeles Times article read, "Technician once employed by suspect manipulated DNA data to delay investigation, risking erasure of evidence in a nearly 40-year case." The incident forced the district attorney's office to pause court proceedings to review the entire forensic chain. Still, reanalysis by FBI Quantico and Caftel confirmed new data was unaffected. Cross remained the primary DNA source, all conclusions intact. Cortez became an unwilling prosecution witness, detailing how Cross contacted him via an old social network, ProNet Photo Forum. Cross, in a follow-up interrogation, only smirked, "He came to me. I didn't need to ask anyone." On the 9th of February 2018, Price submitted a 97-page summary report to Prosecutor Villanueva, noting, "Confirmed interference by James Cortez, former lab technician, linked to suspect via financial transactions and prior employment. Evidence integrity revalidated. Case remains active for prosecution." With Cortez's arrest, all doubts about technical errors were fully cleared. DNA and physical evidence were re-verified by 2 independent labs, solidifying the foundation for the upcoming indictment. That night, Price sat alone in the cold case office. Outside, light rain fell on Pasadena's rooftops. He looked at the system's updated status. ***, case 79 to 3824, active homicide investigation, lab interference resolved. ***. Below, he typed a personal note. The truth never stays buried in the hands of those trying to hide it, whether in brick walls or data. David Cross's trial opened on the 14th of May 2018 at the Los Angeles County Superior Court. The courtroom was packed with reporters, the victim's family, and those following the case for 4 decades. Prosecutor Martha Villanueva led the prosecution, with Detective Samuel Price in the first witness row, facing a file over 900 pages, the full investigation from 1979 to 2018, from lost film rolls and the AR ring to the truth manipulated in the lab. In her opening, Villanueva presented the evidence chain chronologically, from the final light of the Greek theater concert to the syringe found in the darkroom wall. The screen displayed each item: recovered Kodak film capturing Anna Reynolds unconscious, Cross behind the lens; the AR ring, matching scratches on the victim's finger from the 1979 autopsy; the Silverline chemical notebook, listing the benzotriazole formula identical to the toxin in the victim's body; DNA fully matching Cross, independently verified by 2 labs after manipulated data was excluded. Mark Ellison's testimony, confirming he saw Cross drive an unconscious woman from Silverline on the 12th of August 1979. Villanueva concluded her opening. The defendant not only hid the crime but manipulated justice for 40 years, turning truth into the shadow of technique. Defense attorney Leonard Klein, representing Cross, countered, "Mr. Cross doesn't deny administering the drug. It was medical morphine, used to ease a seizure from a lighting shock during a shoot. There was no intent to kill." He argued the victim had a history of substance abuse, and Cross tried to help, but it ended tragically. The jury viewed a digital reconstruction of the scene, narrated coldly by Detective Price. When the real film appeared, faint frames, flickering light, and for a few seconds, a syringe-holding shadow reflected in a dark mirror, the courtroom fell silent. A reporter wrote, "It was the moment the past crashed into the present, and Cross had nowhere to hide." On day 3, witness Mark Ellison took the stand. He recounted the fateful 1979 night, voice trembling but clear. "I saw him carry her like a rag doll, not moving. When I asked, he said she was just dizzy. I knew she wasn't conscious." Below, Cross sat with his head bowed, eyes closed. On day 5, technician James Cortez, the DNA manipulator, was brought as a formal witness. He testified to the jury that Cross bribed him with $4,500 to delay results and blur data. Cortez, head lowered, said, "I thought he was innocent. Now I know I nearly delayed justice for another generation." The courtroom was silent as the prosecution played Cross's recorded interrogation. "I injected her, yes. But she wanted it. I didn't know the drug was that strong." Villanueva countered, "If voluntary, why hide the body in the park, erase photos, and falsify statements?" Cross stayed silent, only saying, "I didn't want my career to collapse." On day 8, the prosecution presented a detailed timeline, reconstructed via physical and forensic evidence. 10:45 p.m. Anna left Greek Theater. 11:15 p.m. Check-in at Silverline. Receipt signed, D. Cross. 11:40 p.m. Film metadata recorded the first photo at the studio. 12:25 a.m. Van left Silverline toward Griffith Park. 2:05 a.m. Victim's Beetle headlights turned off, per old traffic camera. 9:30 a.m. Body discovered. Villanueva concluded. This wasn't an accident. It was a deliberate chain of actions, concealed by technique and silence. In his defense, Cross stood, voice hoarse. "I never meant to kill her. Anna was a friend, a model I valued. She begged me to ease her seizure. I used the wrong dose, and I've lived with guilt since. I kept the ring to remember her, not to hide." At that, Villanueva showed the notebook's final line. She stopped breathing before the exposure finished, and said, "This isn't a remorseful diary. It's the cold record of a man who knew exactly when the victim died." After 3 weeks of trial, the case entered deliberation. On the 12th of June 2018, the jury returned to the courtroom after 8 hours of discussion. The foreperson declared, "We, the jury, having considered all evidence, find the defendant David Cross guilty of murder in the second degree, with aggravating circumstances for intentional concealment and manipulation of evidence." Cross bowed his head, silent. Prosecutor Villanueva glanced at Detective Price, giving a slight nod. After 40 years, Case 79-3824 was officially closed in the courtroom's light, with a second-degree murder conviction and a truth that could no longer be washed away, whether by photochemicals or lies. On the 25th of June 2018, just 2 weeks after the jury's guilty verdict, Judge Evelyn Cho delivered the final sentencing in David Cross's historic trial. The courtroom was silent as she spoke slowly. Based on the severity of the act, the deliberate concealment spanning 4 decades, and the harm caused to the victim's family and to justice, this court sentences the defendant David Cross to 35 years in California State Prison, Corcoran, with no possibility of parole. In the back row, Detective Samuel Price nodded faintly, eyes on Anna Reynolds' family, her mother, over 80. hands trembling as she clutched her daughter's photo. It was the first time she heard the name of her daughter's killer publicly declared. Cross stood still, eyes sunken, face inscrutable. When the judge asked if he had final words, he replied softly, "I've lived my whole life with this guilt. This punishment isn't heavier than my memories." No one knew if it was truth or a final act of deflection. Concurrently, the court announced the resolution for James Cortez, the DNA technician who manipulated investigation data. Under a plea deal, he was sentenced to 12 years for tampering with evidence and obstruction of justice, with a permanent ban from forensic work. In his final statement, Cortez wept. "I wanted justice to move faster, but I slowed it down. I deserve this." After the trial, prosecutor Martha Villanueva held a press conference with LAPD and California Department of Justice representatives. She stated, "The Griffith Park case not only closed a crime but opened a costly lesson for the forensic field. Technology can preserve truth but can also be exploited. Our duty is to protect the line between science and ethics." Immediately after, the Los Angeles Police Department announced its largest reform since the 1990 seconds, the Integrity Protocol Initiative, a DNA chain security and standardization system. All criminal case genetic samples must be stored concurrently at 2 independent centers, with auto-changing encrypted identifiers every 24 hours. Analysis requires 3-person oversight, and all data access is logged with uneditable digital signatures. The Cold Case Unit, thanks to this case, expanded into the Cold Case Division under the Robbery Homicide Division, with doubled funding. Detective Samuel Price was promoted to senior investigator, leading a federal task force with the FBI. He became the first in the unit to oversee the new forensic protocol validation. At the press conference, Price said, "If this system existed in 1979, Anna Reynolds wouldn't have waited 40 years to be named. Technology is never enough without integrity." In 2019, LAPD and the National Institute of Justice, NIJ, released the Griffith Park Protocol Report, citing the case as a classic study in reopening investigations with modern technology. It proposed 3 improvements. 4-tier chain of custody, from crime scene to lab, each transfer independently encrypted. Conflict alert system, auto-detecting personal ties between technicians and investigation subjects. Quarterly, not annual, audits to catch data edits early. California allocated a dedicated budget for this program, named Anna's Law, honoring the case's victim. Meanwhile, Cross was transferred to Corcoran Prison in late July 2018. Housed in the medical wing, due to frail health and oxygen support, he rarely interacted, requesting only paper and pencils, endlessly jotting chemical formulas, described by nurses as darkroom memories. When a reporter sent a letter asking his thoughts, he replied, "No light can wash away the past." The Cross case triggered a wave of internal forensic reviews in California. 12 technicians faced scrutiny, and 3 labs were ordered to overhaul storage protocols. The FBI launched Clean Trace, cross-checking national cold case files for data tampering. From 2019 to 2022, over 150 old cases were reanalyzed, with 27 solved using technology from the LAPD's Post-Cross initiative. In October 2019, at a Griffith Park Observatory memorial for victims, Elaine Reynolds, Anna's mother, was invited to speak. Her voice weak but firm, she said, "I don't want to remember my daughter as a victim. I want to remember her as the one who made an entire system change to protect truth." The crowd stood and applauded, while Price, standing quietly behind, knew those words were the true end to his longest journey. In early 2020, LAPD's final report stated, Case 79 to 3,824. Final disposition. Guilty verdict, murder in the second degree. Procedural reforms enacted. Integrity protocol, operational. Cold case division established. In his personal note, Samuel Price wrote, "From an unprocessed photo and a faint DNA strand, we found a system needing rebirth. Justice, if held with persistence, is never outdated." The Griffith Park case closed, but its legacy from forensic reforms to evidence protection laws endures. A reminder to future investigators. One error can kill truth, but a reopened file at the right moment can save a generation of justice. 1 week after David Cross's sentencing and case 79 to 3,824's official closure, on the morning of the 2nd of July 2018, the LAPD Cold Case Division's Evidence Intake Unit received a small package from a Los Angeles intra-city postal service. Sealed tightly, with no sender address, it bore only a scrawled black ink note. For Detective S. Price, evidence. Handle with care. The intake officer assumed it was a common post-trial thank you parcel, but protocol required scanning unidentified items. When the X-ray revealed a cylindrical metal object and a folded paper, the duty lieutenant immediately summoned Price to the processing room. Price arrived in 10 minutes. Wearing gloves, he carefully cut the tape. Inside old newspaper was another Nikon f2 lens matching the model used in the cross case with an intact serial number, number 7823416, a rare 1978 production. The metal ring showed chemical stains, corrosion similar to the benzotriazole found on evidence E7. Beneath the lens was a white paper folded in quarters, handwritten in slanted blue ink, now smudged. She wasn't the only one. Silverline had more than one victim. Check files from 1980, batch B14. No clear fingerprints, only faint oil smudges. The parcel's code traced to an automated drop-off in Burbank, less than 3 miles from the old Silverline studio. Security footage showed a hooded figure, tall and lean, wearing gloves, leaving in an old pickup truck with no license plate. Price immediately filed an urgent report to superiors. An order to analyze the package was issued that night. Preliminary lab results found minute dried blood on the lens, type O, distinct from Anna Reynolds' blood type. Temporary DNA analysis indicated a female profile, unmatched in the CODIS database. A fine cloth, stuck under the lens's rubber ring, held a long brown hair strand not blonde like Anna's. Price reviewed the results. A chill running down his spine. Over 30 years ago, Silverline had dozens of models for test shoots, but only one case was filed due to a recovered body. If the note was true, Cross or someone at the studio could be linked to other disappearances, overlooked for lack of connections. That afternoon, he went to Parker Center's archive, searching for Silverline's old files, labeled Batch B, 14, divided by 1980, as noted in the paper. After hours, he found a dusty, thin file marked Unidentified Female, Glendale, May 1980. It contained a few black and white photos of a woman, about 25, dead in a seated position, no identification, ruled suicide by morphine. The cursory toxicology report noted, substance unknown, possible industrial solvent contamination. No one linked it to Silverline, as the victim had no clear tie to Cross. Yet, the chemical description matched Silverline's B-series formula. Price called Prosecutor Villanueva that night. If this note is real, Cross didn't act once. Silverline might have been a front for more chemical experiments. Villanueva replied quietly, I don't think your case is over, detective. The next morning, the lab confirmed the faint fingerprint on the paper didn't match Cross, too old and frail, but bore traits of someone younger, possibly under 40. A possibility flashed in Price's mind. Lucas Cross, the suspect's son, briefly detained early on. Now living in Santa Barbara as a software engineer, he had vowed to know the truth about his father. Had he found more evidence post-trial, or was he signaling the case wasn't done? Price drove to Santa Barbara, but Lucas had left 3 days earlier, neighbors saying he went north somewhere. His phone was off, no messages left. LAPD issued a witness locate notice, not an arrest, requesting he come forward to protect his safety and provide information. At Cold Case headquarters, the new lens was coded E50, sealed in a separate box. On the electronic systems status report, Price entered, asterisk, case, 79 to 3,824, closed by conviction, reopened for associated evidence, under subfile 80B 14, unidentified female, Glendale, 1980, asterisk. Below he added, anonymous package. Evidence suggests possible. Second victim, same method. Sender unidentified. Investigation continues. That night, Los Angeles rained again. Price sat alone in his office, staring through the glass at the second Nikon lens in its sealed box. The light reflected off it like an eye watching him. He recalled Villanueva's post-trial words, "No case ever truly ends. Only questions lie dormant." Somewhere among thousands of old case files, more clues might remain of unnamed women who passed through Silverline, stood before David Cross's lens, and were never named. Price turned off the light, closed his notebook, but before leaving, glanced at the screen. The final system line blinked in the dark. Asterisk case 79 to 3824. Status, reopened. Linked evidence found. Asterisk. A new case had begun just as the old one closed. Out there, in unprocessed Silverline film rolls, more faces, more victims, might still hide lost in the deceptive light of that old darkroom. The Griffith Park case, David Cross and Anna Reynolds' story, is not just a personal tragedy, but a profound lesson on the value of truth and responsibility in modern American society. For nearly 40 years, a single evidence mishandling a lost Nikon lens delayed justice for half a century. This image reminds us that in a nation venerating the rule of law like the United States, justice depends not only on courts or technology, but on the hands and conscience of each person in the system. From technician James Cortez, who manipulated DNA data over an old debt, to Detective Samuel Price, who tirelessly recovered every evidence fragment, the story shows how the fragile line between ethics and error can shape a person's fate. Today, as America faces waves of misinformation and wavering trust in institutions, this case is a reminder. Truth can be buried, but never erased if someone dares to seek it. Forensic system reforms, Anna's Law, and new DNA security protocols prove a mistake can lead to progress if we're brave enough to face it. The lesson for us ordinary citizens or justice workers is to hold faith in transparency and human persistence against darkness. Because in America, justice may arrive late, but it never loses its way as long as people like Samuel Price refuse to settle for an easy ending. If you believe truth always finds a way, subscribe to our channel to explore more cases that seemed closed but still have untold stories. Thank you for following the Griffith Park case to its end. See you in the next video, where justice may awaken from forgotten shadows.